Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop calling, texting, or trying so hard, he suddenly starts paying attention? It's not a coincidence. Men feel the shift when your energy pulls back. When you stop chasing, you create space. And in that space, something powerful happens. He starts to wonder, to miss, and eventually to chase. Because your silence isn't just quiet, it's a message that says, I'm not waiting, I'm evolving. And that's what makes you irresistible. We often grow up believing that love is about how much we give, how much attention we show, how often we're there, and how quickly we respond. We're taught that being available, affectionate, and ever present is the golden rule for maintaining someone's interest. But in reality, constantly giving without space doesn't prove your value, it masks it. When you're always the one initiating, always the one reaching out, it doesn't show how much you care, it shows how afraid you are to be forgotten. And people don't chase what they think is always guaranteed. That's the paradox. The more available you are, the less value your presence holds. Because value is rooted in rarity, not repetition. You can love someone deeply and still give them space. You can show up without losing yourself. Love doesn't need to be constant to be real. And think about it. When someone gives us everything without pause, we begin to expect it. We stop appreciating the effort behind their actions because it becomes normal. We forget that their time, attention, and energy are gifts, not obligations. That's what happens when we overextend ourselves in a relationship. We start teaching someone how little they have to do to keep us around. That's why pulling back is powerful. It doesn't mean you care less. It means you respect yourself enough not to chase validation. It means you want a relationship built on mutual effort, not one-sided pursuit. Because love shouldn't be a performance to earn someone's attention. It should be a connection that flows naturally between two people who both value each other. And many people fear that pulling back means playing games, but in truth, it's about reclaiming emotional balance. It's about not allowing your self-worth to be measured by someone else's approval. When you always give without stepping back, you risk losing the opportunity to see how someone truly feels. Are they into you, or are they just enjoying the ease of your constant availability? You won't know until you stop overgiving. And when you do pull back, the reaction is telling. Some may disappear, and that's clarity, not rejection. Others will step up, realizing your presence wasn't a guarantee because you weren't being difficult. You were finally giving them space to decide. And what happens in that space is powerful. When you create distance, you allow someone to reflect. They begin to feel your absence. And in that absence, they discover whether their feelings are genuine or convenient. You no longer spoon feed them your attention, so they have to reach out, think about you, miss you. And ironically, that's when people start noticing you more. When you don't make them the center of your world, they're drawn in because they sense your independence. They sense that you're not desperate, you're discerning. And people chase what they feel they could lose, not what they're handed every day without effort. Think about the last time someone valued something that was always there, no matter what they did. It rarely happens. That's not about being unkind. It's about human nature. We appreciate what challenges us, what makes us rise. And when you step back, you give someone the chance to rise, to meet you where you are, to show you who they really are when they don't have your energy constantly filling the gap. That's the test, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're finally making space for their effort to show up. And this space you create isn't silence, it's self-respect. You're not pulling back to punish or provoke, you're pulling back to protect your peace, to see if this person values you when you're not constantly proving your worth. And that's essential because someone who's truly interested won't let that distance grow too wide. They'll notice, they'll respond, they'll lean in. But someone who only took your energy for granted, they'll drift. And that's okay. That's information. That's clarity that you might not have gotten if you kept giving endlessly. You're not walking away. You're just letting them walk toward you if they choose to. And we live in a world that glorifies hustle. Even in love, we think we have to keep earning someone's affection day after day. But the truth is, love that's real doesn't need to be earned like a paycheck. It needs to be felt and reciprocated. And pulling back helps you see if that's what you truly have. If someone misses you when you're not constantly available, that says something. If they don't even notice, that says something louder. You're not being dramatic. You're being intentional. You're choosing not to be in a relationship where you're the only one showing up. And that's maturity, not manipulation. And a healthy relationship can't be built on the fear of losing someone. It's built on the confidence that if they're meant for you, they'll show up even when you stop overextending. Pulling back isn't the end of connection. It's the beginning of a more honest one. It forces both people to take a look at what's really happening. Are you being valued or just tolerated? Are you being appreciated or simply used for your energy? These are the hard questions you get answers to when you stop being the one who's always giving. And those answers, even when painful, set you free. And some people might misinterpret your distance as disinterest. But the ones who truly care will dig deeper. They'll ask what's going on. They'll reach out. They won't let you go just because you're no longer chasing them. And that's how you separate someone who wants you from someone who wants your attention. You weren't asking for too much. You were just giving too much without balance. Pulling back restores that balance. It reminds you that you're not here to impress, you're here to be aligned with someone who sees your worth without being constantly reminded of it. And so when you pull back, you're not giving up. You're giving room. You're making space to receive love instead of just offering it. You're teaching the world and yourself that your presence is meaningful. That you are not a background character in someone else's story. You are the main character of your own. And if someone wants to be part of your life, they'll show up in a way that matches that energy. Pulling back isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And the more you do it with intention, the more you attract those who are genuinely ready to meet you where you stand. And when you're always available, always texting first, always making plans, something subtle but powerful happens. You start to remove the space where desire lives. Desire doesn't grow in constant presence. It grows in space, in curiosity, in the unknown. When you never give someone a moment to miss you, they never get the chance to realize what your presence really means. That doesn't mean you should disappear or go cold. It means there's strength in pulling back enough to let someone lean in. When you create space, you give him the opportunity to notice the silence, to feel the difference between having you around and not. That contrast is what builds longing. People don't realize they're invested until that presence is no longer constant. That's when questions start to arise. Why hasn't she texted? What is she doing? Do I miss her? Those questions don't appear when everything is always served up without effort. And space builds value, not because you're withholding, but because you're demonstrating that your world doesn't revolve around one person. That's incredibly attractive. It signals confidence, independence, and a sense of self that doesn't vanish in the presence of romantic interest. You become someone with a life, someone he wants to be a part of, not someone who's waiting to be filled by him. That distinction matters. People naturally want to chase what feels whole, what feels complete without them. It creates intrigue. And intrigue invites pursuit. When you take a step back, you invite someone to come toward you, not because you're playing games, but because you're no longer giving more than you're receiving. That changes the dynamic from chasing love to attracting it. And there's a myth that love should always feel intense, constant, overwhelming, but that's often just anxiety dressed up as romance. Real attraction needs room to breathe. It needs a natural rhythm of connection and space. The more you chase, the more the dynamic tilts, and the more he starts leaning back. It's not because you're not enough, it's because energy always seeks balance. When you do all the work, all the reaching out, all the emotional investing, you unknowingly take away his opportunity to step into his role. Pulling back resets that balance. It says, I'm open, but I won't overextend. That's when he has a reason to lean forward. That's when effort becomes his choice, not your demand. And the truth is, people often confuse effort with control. We think, if I just stay consistent, if I just show him how much I care, he'll feel it and respond. But attraction doesn't work on logical timelines. Emotional connection isn't something you force into being through persistence. It's something that grows through interest, not obligation. And interest grows through mystery, through depth, through moments of wondering. That's why pulling back is powerful. It allows space for someone to choose you rather than feel cornered by your attention. When someone chooses to move toward you on their own, it means more. It's authentic and it's sustainable because it didn't come from pressure, it came from desire. And think about the people in your life you valued the most. Chances are they weren't the ones constantly begging for your attention. They were the ones who had boundaries, who respected themselves, who gave you space to miss them, and that made you lean in. The same principle applies in romantic attraction. When you're always there, there's no tension. And tension is what gives romance its energy. It's not about being distant or playing hard to get. It's about understanding that closeness without space loses its spark. People crave excitement, and excitement is born when things are not always predictable. Pulling back creates that unpredictability. It's not a tactic, it's a reset. And when you always fill the silence, always respond immediately, always initiate contact, you're essentially telling the other person, you don't have to try, I'll do it all. But love that lasts doesn't grow from imbalance. It grows from mutual investment. It grows when both people have a reason to show up. If you never stop giving, he never starts. Pulling back invites him to ask, do I want to make this effort? That answer matters because if he doesn't, he was never really in it to begin with. And if he does, it's because your presence became valuable in its absence. That's when real connection begins to unfold. And a lot of people are scared to pull back because they think it means they'll lose him. But if pulling back causes him to walk away, he was already halfway gone. Your effort was just delaying the inevitable. Pulling back doesn't create distance, it reveals it. And that revelation is what frees you from constantly trying to prove your worth. You're not stepping back to test him, you're stepping back to see him clearly. When someone really cares, they don't disappear in your silence. They feel it, they come closer, they notice the shift and respond, not out of fear, but out of genuine connection. And that's what you deserve to see. And creating space also helps you. It gives you clarity. It allows you to detach from overthinking and regain emotional balance. When you're constantly in it, constantly texting, calling, giving, you don't have time to reflect. You're caught in the chase, but when you pull back, you can breathe. You can see how you're really feeling. Are you chasing because you care or because you're scared? Are you invested in him or just in how much you've already given? Space allows those questions to rise. And answering them can shift everything. You're no longer driven by fear or habit. You're acting from clarity and self-respect. And there's a version of you that doesn't beg for love but attracts it naturally. That version isn't cold or distant. She's grounded, centered, calm. She knows her presence is valuable, and she doesn't rush to fill empty space just to keep someone around. She creates enough distance to let people show her who they really are. And she doesn't fear the outcome because she understands if someone values her, they'll step forward. If they don't, she hasn't lost anything. She's just been shown the truth. Pulling back is her way of honoring herself. It's not a strategy. It's a standard. It's emotional intelligence in motion. And so when you feel tempted to overtext, to overgive, to overexplain, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of confidence or fear? Because confident energy doesn't chase, it invites. It doesn't flood, it flows. And it doesn't demand, it allows. You are not someone who has to over-deliver to be loved. You are someone who deserves love that arrives without being begged for. That kind of love can only appear when you create the space for it. So yes, pull back, not to create anxiety, but to create room. Room for him to miss you. Room for you to breathe, room for love to rise on its own. Detachment is often misunderstood. People hear the word and think it means cold, emotionless, or distant. But that's not what true detachment is. Detachment is not about shutting people out. It's about not allowing your emotional well-being to depend on their actions. It's the ability to care deeply without becoming consumed. When you're emotionally detached in a healthy way, you're saying, I care about you, but I don't need you to complete me. That's not arrogance, it's confidence. It's the quiet strength of someone who knows they are whole on their own. You can love someone, desire connection, and still hold space for yourself. That space is where your peace lives. And when a man senses that you are content with or without him, he's naturally drawn in. Because your energy doesn't feel needy, it feels magnetic. And confidence in love doesn't mean being indifferent, it means being secure. It means knowing that you don't have to cling, chase, or convince someone to be with you. You bring your best self to the table, and if someone meets you, they're great. If they don't, you're not shattered. You're grounded. That grounded energy is what separates women who attract healthy relationships from those who find themselves always giving more than they receive. Detachment allows you to observe instead of overreact, to respond instead of panic. And in romantic dynamics, that self-control is incredibly powerful. Men feel it. They may not always be able to explain it, but they're deeply affected by it. It tells them, this woman has options. She's not here to be rescued. She's here because she chooses to be. And there's something incredibly attractive about a woman who doesn't center her life around whether or not a man texts back. When your world doesn't rise or fall on his behavior, you become a rare kind of presence, one that doesn't demand, one that invites. Detachment creates that space. You're no longer giving from a place of fear. You're no longer reacting to breadcrumbs. You're not constantly refreshing your phone, wondering what went wrong. Instead, you're centered in your own worth. That energy tells him you're emotionally safe, but not emotionally dependent. You can connect, but you won't collapse if he disappears. That's power. Not over him, but within yourself. And it's easy to fall into the trap of proving your value. Especially when you really like someone, it's tempting to overextend, text more, offer more, show him how amazing you are. But what you often end up doing is giving someone too much too soon. You give before they've earned it. You give before they've truly invested. And that imbalance makes you look like you're seeking approval instead of sharing connection. Detachment stops that cycle. It says, I'll show up, but only in proportion to how you show up for me. That mindset doesn't just protect your heart, it elevates your standards. And elevated standards attract elevated people. And the more detached you are, the more you're able to see things clearly without emotional noise clouding your judgment. You can tell if someone's actions align with their words. You can spot red flags without explaining them away. You can feel a shift in effort without rushing to fix it. That clarity helps you make better choices, not out of desperation, but from alignment. Detachment gives you room to observe, to reflect, and to act with intention. And when you move from intention rather than insecurity, everything about you feels different. You're not just another person hoping to be chosen. You're someone choosing yourself first. And that confidence shifts every dynamic in your favor. And men are not drawn to chaos, they're drawn to calm. When a woman carries herself with emotional stability, it's grounding. It feels safe. And ironically, it also feels challenging in the best way because it signals that you're not available to just anyone. You're not giving your heart away on a whim. You're emotionally intelligent enough to take your time. That pacing changes everything. It turns you from someone who's easy to get into someone who's worth earning. And people value what they earn. Detachment creates that environment. It makes him want to invest. Not because you're playing games, but because your energy feels rare, because it's not constantly chasing. And there's a major difference between pretending not to care and actually being at peace with the outcome. The first is manipulation. The second is maturity. When you're truly detached, you're no longer trying to control how things unfold. You're simply observing what unfolds and deciding how you want to respond. That energy is magnetic because it's calm and collected. It doesn't need drama to feel alive. It doesn't chase highs and lows. It's steady, graceful, and grounded in self-trust. And in the world of dating, that energy stands out because while others are losing themselves trying to win love, you're attracting it by standing still in your power. And emotional detachment also stops you from taking everything personally. Not every delay in a text means he's losing interest. Not every quiet moment is a rejection. When you're attached, your mind fills the silence with stories. But when you're detached, you wait, you observe, and you let reality show itself. You stop assuming, you start allowing. And in that space, you often find that things aren't as dramatic as you feared. That clarity comes from detachment, because when you're not trying to force an outcome, you're finally able to receive the truth without emotional distortion. And that truth protects you from wasting energy on someone who isn't ready or worthy. And the irony is that when you become emotionally detached, you actually become more present. You're no longer obsessed with the future or panicking about the past. You're here. You're paying attention to how things feel, not just how much you want them to work. And in that presence, you gain power. Power to walk away when needed. Power to stay without losing yourself. Power to engage from fullness, not fear. And that presence is incredibly attractive. It allows real connection to form, one that isn't built on fantasy or anxiety, but on actual compatibility and mutual respect. And detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care from a place of balance. You're not abandoning love. You're approaching it with emotional maturity. You're not disconnected. You're just no longer tied to needing a specific outcome. And that freedom changes everything. It puts you back in control of your energy. It makes your love a gift, not a transaction. And when a man feels that, when he senses that you're emotionally available but not emotionally dependent, he sees your value in a different light. He sees you as a woman who loves herself enough not to settle. And that's the woman who inspires him to rise. When a woman stops chasing, she stops feeding a dynamic that never served her. Chasing puts you in a position of lack, of trying to prove your worth to someone who hasn't earned it. And even if he responds, it's usually from a place of comfort, not genuine desire. There's no urgency, no hunger, because he knows you'll always be there. But when you stop reaching out, when you take a breath and step back, the dynamic shifts entirely. Suddenly, the comfort he had is gone. The attention he once took for granted disappears, and that silence becomes louder than any words. In that space, he starts to feel your absence. He starts to realize what it meant to have you consistently show up for him. And now he's left wondering why it stopped. And that's the power of pulling away. You give him the space to feel the difference between your presence and your absence. Often we think constantly giving more will create connection, but it actually creates imbalance. Real connection comes from mutual effort, not one-sided pursuit. When you stop giving that energy away freely, you stop rewarding minimal effort. You're no longer pouring into someone who isn't pouring back. And the moment he realizes the flow of energy has changed, he starts to feel off balance. That imbalance doesn't make him angry, it makes him curious. He wonders, why isn't she calling? Why isn't she checking in like before? That curiosity is what leads to realization. And realization is what sparks the desire to chase. And men often don't process emotions through deep reflection until something disrupts their routine. When everything is predictable, there's nothing pushing them to think deeper. But your silence, that's a disruption. It forces him out of autopilot. It forces him to feel. And feelings are powerful motivators. When you're no longer texting good morning, liking his posts, checking in late at night, he begins to notice the emotional gap. That emotional gap becomes uncomfortable. He may not say it, but it lingers. In the back of his mind, he starts asking himself, what changed? And if he ever cared, if there was real connection, he will feel drawn to find the answer. That's the beginning of the chase. Not just to get your attention, but to get back the emotional security he once felt. And when you stop chasing, your energy shifts from desperation to dignity. You stop begging to be seen and start reclaiming your worth. That shift is palpable. A woman who values herself enough to walk away from one-sided dynamics emits a completely different frequency. She no longer waits around hoping for breadcrumbs. She waits for consistency. And men notice that. They notice the absence of validation. They notice the lack of response. But more importantly, they notice the self-respect. That's when attraction changes from shallow interest to something deeper. Because now he's not chasing someone who needs him, he's chasing someone who chooses herself. And a woman who no longer chases forces a man to either rise or fall away. It's that simple. When he no longer has easy access to you, he has to confront what he really feels. Was he just enjoying attention, or was he genuinely connected to you? Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the truth of his investment. And here's where it gets real. If he never chases, you haven't lost anything. You've just learned he was never truly invested. But if he does, it's because something inside him woke up. That wake-up call wouldn't have come if you kept chasing. Sometimes love needs space to be seen. And that space can only be created when you step back. And stopping the chase is not about punishing him, it's about protecting your peace. Constant pursuit leaves you emotionally drained. It makes you doubt your value. It keeps you stuck in cycles of hope and disappointment. But when you stop, you regain your energy. You reconnect with yourself. You start focusing on things that light you up instead of someone who dims your light. And that reconnection makes you radiant. Men don't just chase beauty, they chase presence, confidence, and joy. When you stop chasing, you redirect all that energy back into your own life. And nothing is more attractive than a woman who's fulfilled without needing to be pursued. And there's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who doesn't reach out, yet holds space for connection. She's not cold, she's not bitter, she's simply centered. She's not chasing, but she's not closed off either. That balance is rare. It creates tension, not the toxic kind, but the kind that draws someone in, because now he's the one wondering. He's the one checking his phone. He's the one imagining conversations that never happened. That mystery sparks interest, and that interest turns into effort. When you stop chasing, you create a gap he now wants to fill. And the beautiful thing, you didn't have to manipulate anything. You just stopped overgiving. And the chase begins when the energy flips. The more you pursued, the more he relaxed. But the moment you remove your energy, he either fills the gap or fades away. Both are a win for you, because either way, you stop investing in someone who wasn't ready, or you finally get to witness him rise to meet you. You're no longer reacting to his inconsistency. You're watching how he responds to your calm. That's your power. It's not in the text you send or the call you make. It's in the space you hold, the silence you allow, the peace you protect. That space forces him to take initiative or take a step back. And both outcomes reveal everything. And the chase is not about playing hard to get, it's about being hard to forget. You become unforgettable when you stop trying to impress and start living in your truth. That truth says, I want love, but I don't need chaos. I want connection, but I won't beg for it. I want effort, not excuses. That message is loud, even in silence, especially in silence. Men feel it. And when they feel it, they're faced with a choice: step up or miss out. The man who sees your value won't risk losing it. He'll pursue, not because you demanded it, but because you reminded him of what it feels like to miss you. That reminder is everything. And every time you pull your energy back, you reintroduce him to the idea that you are not his default. You are not his convenience. You are not background noise in his life.